Player input is one of the many grunt work tasks of game development, in that it involves a lot of often kind of boring but necessary work to create something that lives up to modern expectations in games and is flexible and scalable throughout a project, in which the player can have lots of different complex interactions via the keys and buttons they press. It's pretty easy in GameMaker to get the player's input and do a thing in isolation, but perhaps you also want them to be able to use a controller or the mouse for the same task, or allow them to rebind their default keys. Maybe your game allows for multiple players. Now, none of these are insurmountable tasks with GameMaker, for very simple games and jam games especially, but they do cause headaches the larger the scope of your project. There's also a lot of different kinds of controllers, and GameMaker treats some of them differently to others, so you have to account for that. Some don't work at all out of the box, and yeah, as you want the game to have richer input management and quality of life, the work goes up quickly. Thankfully, GameMaker Planeswalker, Juju Adams, together with Alan Keith, have built a library called Input that just does all of this in a way that's remarkably painless, easy to manage, and just removes all of these problems for free. They've developed a chunk of your game and just given you it for free so you don't have to write it. Input allows you to define all your inputs as verbs, so for example, for jumping, instead of checking the spacebar or shift or Z or whatever, you simply check the jump verb, which in input will be associated with a default key, alternate keys, pad inputs, etc. What's great about this is it completely separates your input definitions from your game logic. Your game logic only has to care about whether the player has pressed jump. What jump is, what buttons can cause you to jump, and so on are defined and managed by input separately. This also means that if the player picks up a controller and starts pressing buttons on that instead, input can automatically swap to using those controls on the fly again without you having to do anything. This sounds great, Sean, so how does any of this work? Well, you grab the library, you stick it in your project, define your various verbs and settings, and you're basically done. Back in older versions of GameMaker, you needed a persistent object with a line of code that runs the tick of the library every game step. But with Input 5 and the latest version of GameMaker onwards, you don't even need to do that. It uses time sources and global scripts to set itself up without you doing anything other than importing the files and defining your verbs. Then when it comes time to making a menu to rebind your keys, you have functions you can use to just change one binding out for another, or even swap profiles of whole groups of bindings or whatever else your game needs. The whole thing is also built on top of an open source, engine-agnostic rebinding system called SDL2, so out of the box it's going to work with all common controllers, but also a lot of more obscure controllers and devices that normally cause a lot of headaches for a GameMaker project. This is one of the few libraries and plugins out there that for me is really a no-brainer for almost any project. I'd even use this in jam games, honestly. The separation of logic and ready completed boring tasks and solid infrastructure is just, it's a straight up upgrade to GameMaker really, and it's just free. I've only touched on the basics here and the why you want it essentials, but there's a lot that Input can do that I've not even been able to try yet. It's got great documentation, and Juju has a whole Discord server for not just Input, but all his other libraries, many of which probably deserve their own videos. Especially Scribble, I use that one a ton. I don't know, just go check all these things out, they're really useful, use the things, make video games. Cheers guys, catch you all next time.